So, I don't really have much in the way of followers or anything, and I'm not sure if anyone would even see this, but I'm just going to go ahead and get it out there anyways because reasons. Who knows? Maybe someone out there who's been going through something similar will have some words to offer, or someone else will know they're not alone and will feel better. So I have a really, really weird relationship with gender and sexuality. I was assigned female at birth, and I didn't exactly get a lot of chances to explore what that meant. I grew up in places with very rigid gender roles, rural, really conservative, religious type places, Women in the kitchen, men doing whatever they wanted, really. Some of that was bucked because of girls and the women of the households helping with different things like handling livestock, or if they were lucky, participating in sports like barrel racing, roping, and whatnot. So it wasn't as strict as it might have been, but there was still this overarching belief that once they had their fun and grew up, they'd settle down to be wives and mothers and hang up their roping boots for good. I didn't like this very much. Though I did learn some useful skills that I do still enjoy to this day, like cooking, doing canning. My ex's family once told me that the friends they gave some apple butter I made to said it was the best apple butter they'd ever tasted. Sewing, things that are traditionally considered feminine. I still enjoy a lot of those things, although I know that's not really a reflection on my gender so much as just how things are unnecessarily gendered in society as a whole. I didn't even know being gay or trans was a thing until I was a teenager and started hearing about those ungodly freaks at church, or the parents talking about how they'd kick their kids out if they ever so much as looked at someone of the same gender in a romantic way. I mean, I didn't even know what the word boner meant until I was 17 and I had to ask somebody. I grew up rural enough to know how to butcher a deer and to know from basically being a toddler where babies came from and helped cattle deliver calves and things like that. But knowing anything beyond the basic mechanics? Nope. I didn't even know it was supposed to feel good. I figured it was like a scheduled chore you did. Wash dishes, hang the laundry out on the line, make a baby, put the chicken in the sink to thaw for dinner, just checking off the list. I started feeling like I didn't like being a girl from a very young age, though. I mostly chalked that up to the expectations that were placed on me. I had to babysit and help raise other kids at a really young age, and I did not like it. They were often horrible and bratty and had untreated behavioral and mental problems that I was in no way equipped to deal with, but I was expected to be automatically nurturing and know what to do because female. I was expected to cook and clean and stay inside helping with housework while any boys or grown men who were in the household got to do whatever they liked, including messing with me, getting in my way, breaking things that I'd be blamed and punished for, and just in general not just making me dislike men as a whole, but also hate being a girl. But there was something else there too. It just didn't feel quite right. I liked swooshy skirts and cute aprons and plush things, which I do still like, but something about it just didn't fit. When I got older and eventually away from all those situations, I started exploring a little more and came across what transgender meant. From the moment I heard it, it was like everything suddenly made sense. Of course, I hated being a girl. I wasn't one. As soon as I could, I started taking steps to try and transition. I ended up getting a double mastectomy covered by insurance because of genes and some worrying signs leaning towards breast cancer. I had been pretty dang big before then, so getting rid of them was a relief. And I noticed right away that people treated me pretty differently. Not always in good ways, but I wasn't getting leered at or having guys at the bus stop asking me to come home with them anymore, which was awesome. I never had much interest in changing the down below as I'm not exactly, active and doubt I really will be. And I find myself kind of weirded out at the idea of having a different set of genitals. I got on testosterone and pretty much immediately got fuzzier. I hoped this was a good sign, but not a lot else changed. I didn't get stronger. My muscle structure didn't really adjust. My voice only deepened just enough to sound foreign to me, and that I couldn't really sing anymore. Not that I'd ever really been that good at it. My facial structure didn't change. I just looked and sounded like a fuzzy, flat chested girl with a permanent 5 o'clock shadow, thanks to how dark my hair is. I was on the highest dose of tea they said they could safely give me for several years. Watching other people's transformations turn them into a totally different looking person after just about 6 months or so, while I didn't really change at all. Then some stuff went down. There was a mess up with some other medications I was on at the time, and I ended up making an attempt on my own life via overdose in 2020. I learned some very interesting things when that happened. One, psychiatric hospitals are not as scary as people think they are and are mostly just boring. Two, if you get switched to a new doctor and he tells you to just toss your old medications and try a completely new one without weaning off the old one or any kind of transition or anything, you should probably ask for a second opinion. And three, my body is some kind of cobbled together mess of whatever was on the chop shop floor because I should have absolutely died, but my body is so screwed up that it couldn't even do that right. To be precise, I used pills. The pills in particular that I used should have been a fatal dose at around 20 pills. I took 200 of them, over 10 times what should have been a fatal dose for someone my size. I passed out for a few hours, scratched up my face somehow. My nose still has some scars at the end of it. And I woke up really, really dizzy, wandered out into the hallway, and ran into one of the apartment managers who immediately sat me down and called an ambulance. Went to the hospital, had one hell of a headache, but a while later I was totally fine and had no lasting effects beside the scars. They ran some tests on me, and as it turns out, my body just doesn't absorb and process things the way it's supposed to. Hormones, nutrients, medication, which explains why so many medications they put me on did nothing. My body just doesn't take things up the way it's supposed to, though it sure seems to absorb sugar and fat just fine. Anyway, the long and short of this was that I could be on testosterone forever, and while it might make tiny, tiny, gradual changes over probably decades, in reality, I would probably never get to where I wanted to be. I never wanted to be in some in between state. I figured I'd just have to get through that part to get to the finish line, but that it wouldn't really take very long considering how fast other people's transition processes went. Being non-binary or non-conforming works for some people, and good on them. I'm happy for whatever works for them. Live your truth, be who you are, but that's not for me. I want it to just be one thing. People see me, hear my voice, they think that's a guy. Maybe a little bit of a feminine guy, but not having to fight that fight with people every time I introduce myself to them, not having my existence be a constant question with every single stranger I meet at every job interview, every time I go in to pick up medication and they see a somewhat feminine name and see a not really feminine face or whatever. I just didn't want to have to deal with all that. I just wanted to be one thing, easy and done. And realistically, that's never going to happen for me. I fought with it for a really long time. I got defiant, figured, damn the torpedoes, I was going to keep trying anyway. And there were a few moments that were really affirming for me sometimes. Like when I was going to a gym and I used the men's changing room, and no one gave me any guff about it. They all just treated me like one of the dudes, and that was amazing. I wasn't able to keep going, however. I have a lot of physical stuff going on, which may be partially rooted in my body's inability to absorb nutrients properly. And I had people asking me a lot if I was a guy trying to transition to be a girl because of my flat chest and the beard shadow, or making weird comments about me, or just being disrespectful and trying to pick fights. And I just don't have that dog in me anymore. It got worn out keeping me alive throughout my childhood. So I made the hard choice to try detransitioning. They didn't put me on estrogen. They said my hormones would level themselves out after I stopped taking testosterone. But we started taking steps towards reconstructive surgery, and I have tissue expanders in my chest now, though they haven't been filled for several months, as the only doctors that insurance will cover that will do it are over an 8-hour drive one way, and I can't afford the gas. I've been using one of those at home laser thingies to try and get rid of the facial hair, and while it's growing slower, the shadow is still always there, and makeup doesn't hide it very well, especially with my very, very limited makeup skills. I still struggle with what I actually want to do. Most people look at me, hear my name and my voice, and immediately accept female, just one with a weird beard shadow and a flat chest, which is fine, but at the same time, I still get a lot of what ifs. Even if I know realistically I'll never be in a romantic relationship with anyone, sometimes I still wonder if it'd be possible if I was able to just be one or the other. I know non binary people have relationships all the time, but I don't want to be in a relationship as a non binary person because I'm not one. It doesn't feel right for me. I'm mostly attracted to men, and I'm too man for the men who are attracted to women, and too woman for the men who are attracted to men. I don't particularly fit anywhere, and while I've mostly just accepted all of this, it does still hurt sometimes, especially when I'm really sick or having a really bad day, and I just want someone to hug me and tell me it'll be okay. Maybe bring me some tea or help me get to the sofa when my vertigo hits really badly and I collapse, instead of me having to drag myself over to it with maybe my dog helping me. And somebody who would be there to ask me if I'm okay and actually be there for me physically if I wasn't. Sometimes I want to keep trying to reach that goal that I had in my head, even if it takes decades. But then I'm afraid, what if I never get there at all? And there's a lot of parts of being labeled as a woman that I'm really quite comfortable with. Like, no one thinks much of it when I'm talking about quilting or sewing. Nobody cares that I still have plushies on my bed. No one cares that I like pink and wearing cute aprons and baking and doing a lot of traditionally feminine things. If a cisgender guy does those things, it's seen as totally adorable. But if a trans guy does traditionally feminine things, it's basically taken as proof as, oh, see, that's not a real man. They're totally a woman just pretending to be a guy for, I don't know, a fetish or something. I I don't know why I'm even recording this or anything. I guess I just wanted to get it off my chest and have an answer ready out there for anybody who might bother to be curious about what my deal is. Because, I mean, straight up, I don't even know what my deal is. I have no idea, and it doesn't look like I'm going to have much of an answer anytime soon. But if anybody was interested in listening, then, thank you for listening. And if you're going through sort of the same thing, I promise you're not alone. There's people like you out there who also struggle with identity and all of this other stuff and not knowing what direction to go in. And I don't have answers for you. I can't tell you what to do because I don't even know what to do in my own life, but you know, you're not alone. There's other people who are experiencing the same thing, and you have people who you can talk to. So, thanks for listening.